data to be able to monitor compliance and the evaluation of the schemes. You're able to do this at the comfort of your rooms. You can see data of how much collections are done, what is the value of assets under management, how many complaints are being addressed, are they actually being addressed or not? And you can see this in real time. One of our other concerns is, and we are very passionate about, is financial literacy and customer protection. We actually use very robust tools that we develop ourselves, which work online and offline, and we use data.
Thank you, Ms. Parole, for your presentation. I'd like to invite one follow-up question from the panel of judges. One follow-up question, if there is any from the panel of judges for Ms. Parole.
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, I think that's very good kind of explanation. But how do you conform to pension regulators? It's something that you could have mentioned. How do you conform to the pension regulators?
So for the regulator, we have actually a live dashboard. And I'll give you a live example of a scheme that we actually launched in Rwanda called Ejoheza in December this year. This is our latest deployment. The regulator can actually sit in his room, and see how much compliance is being done in real-time data. And this has actually been done through very robust technology, which comes from the field, integrated from the field, and everything is integrated with national ID. Today, this scheme, as of today, has actually about 150,000 people in the scheme, with 250 million of assets under management since December to now. So this is how it actually works in real time. Thank you. Sorry,
Thank
you
you.
have another question? Yes, the system is already rolled out. It's rolled out in Rwanda. In India, we rolled out with 2.5 million customers. And in Kenya, we're rolling out next month, and Bangladesh and Indonesia next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Parole. Kana, another round of applause for Ms. Parole. Next, we have Mr. Robert Bell, the founder and CEO of ClickX, and he's coming forward to make his pitch.
Ladies and gentlemen, hello. My name is Robert Bell. I am from the Pacific, and I've come here to talk to all of you today about the work we've been doing in terms of broad spectrum financial inclusion, and more recently, the issues of closing correspondent accounts and the phenomenon known as de-risking. I'm very proud to talk to you about particularly 4 of our many, many programs that we have. The 4 here is our central banking systems, the systems that we give to central banks to enable them to build digital-ready payment systems and financial infrastructure. The second is the domestic payment systems. The third part is the cross-border mobile money and currency systems, which integrate regions. And finally, what's the grassroots activity that we do on the ground to make sure that all these flash systems get access to the regular people. We're very proud to have just completed a brand new build of national payment systems, going from RTGS, real-time gross settlement, through to ACH, house systems, down to retail payments, and of course, unified national KYC systems and AML transaction monitoring, as well as installing currency handling, check processing, automation, as well as the actual physical notes, government bond services, everything a central bank and a country needs to run and build the platforms for digital ecosystems. Once a country has the digital ecosystems, a brand new payment system, a real-time interaction between all the commercial banks, mobile money integration, sometimes you then need a next step. You need a kicker to get the people into the system. So we've been very, very active in building this for our vast area, about 2 or 3 times the size of all of Africa, but only 600,000 people live there across 26 countries. So we need unified infrastructure for the entire region to hit economies of scale. So we've built mobile money systems. We dropped the prices from about 22% on a $200 transaction down to about 3%, and even lower for a bank-to-bank payment. We build the ecosystems for cash, mobile money transactions. We're one of the biggest credit card processors in one of our countries. And we've done everything from the biometric agent locations, where someone will walk in and put in their thumb and be integrated into our KYC platforms. And that KYC platform then has the ability to be used across the region in a data-sensitive way to manage transactions going around the region in countries that have 10, 20, 30, or even 100,000 people. The biggest challenge we faced, because we have something like 70% household penetration, and we've had that for over 5 years, which is quite phenomenal, is the issue that we've had with de-risking. I've got about a minute left to talk about de-risking, which is nowhere near enough time for such a big problem. But we have invested considerable energy in the send-side markets, building infrastructure for banks there and the money transfer operators in the send side to access an alternative clearing system, the same system we put in the receive side markets, so that you can join that payment infrastructure and not have correspondent account issues. It's not complete fully globally, obviously. We're just in Australia and New Zealand at the moment, but our plan is pushing hard into roll out into the US, Europe, and the other parts of the world. So that's building an open access system where the KYC and transaction monitoring is all built in. And therefore, we manage the risk of KYC on behalf of the entire network, so we have the confidence to follow through. How does this work with AFI? Well, we're highly aligned and we've been friends for a long time. We're building the open architecture platform that enables grassroots people to get into the system, KYC services as well, which is a big thing these days. And I just want to finish with one slide. We're doing most of the foreign exchange transactions in the region. And you can see that we dip there. That has been de-risking.
Thank you, Mr. Robert Bell. I would like to invite one question from the panel of judges.
For the cross-border transaction, do you handle all currencies?
Do we handle all of the currencies?
All currencies.
Not all of them yet. We haven't resolved the entire world's problems. But all the currencies in the Pacific. We have our clearing systems are in 8 markets at the moment. That does take some scale to roll out across the rest of the world. So we're working, sorry for the echo, we're working quite hard on building the infrastructure needed to bring in the rest of the markets. It's not a technical capacity, it's slightly a legislative capacity issue. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Robert. Our third presenter is Mr. Curtis Matlock, the CEO of Cinetic.
Hello everyone, my name is Curtis Matlock and I'm the CEO of Cinetic. It's a pleasure to be here with you today to present the AI-enabled consumer complaints system for financial inclusion at Africa's central banks. This technology was first delivered to the Central Bank of the Philippines last year, and just last week it won the AI prize at the Central Banking Awards for FinTech and RegTech. So what's the problem that we're talking about? Around the world, central banks and regulators are responsible for monitoring and pushing through to resolution financial consumer complaints. Specifically though, what we find is there's about 40% annual case growth year on year, and there's around 4 to 6 month case resolution time, which quite frankly for financial inclusion is unacceptable. If we look specifically at the existing manual process for financial complaints, you'll see 2 problems. One problem is that the existing channels favor those who are relatively affluent or have access to facilities in urban areas. So these are channels like mail, where you would need to have a smartphone or an email account, or walk-in kiosk, where you need to be able to travel into an urban area. The second problem is that once the complaints are received, it goes through a human agent, and no complaint is recorded in the exact same way. This creates a huge amount of unstructured, inconsistent data, which causes problems down the road if you're doing predictive analytics, or you're trying to identify and solve market misconduct. Within Africa, we've already received expressions of interest from central banks, totaling 388 million total population. This is the solution. It is an AI-powered chatbot which understands local languages, dialects, and mixed language. Mixed language is the use of 2 languages in one sentence, such as Swahili and English to form Shang. This chatbot is available through channels such as Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, as well as the national SMS system. The chatbot collects and accurately categorizes financial consumer complaints, reducing the manual burden for central bank staff. This is what the new and improved system looks like. The complaints are collected through the social media channels and SMS. It's accurately categorized. It's stored within a complaint database. The central bank staff can view it within an interface, and then it's sent automatically. The complaints are sent automatically to the supervised entities, such as commercial banks. This leads to a much faster and timelier reply, and this new system opens up the complaint system to the entire country, essentially, to all rural areas. It is also collecting very structured and consistent data, which opens up opportunities in the future for policymaking. So in conclusion, and in the words of the former governor of the Central Bank of the Philippines, the chatbot has significant potential to bring us closer to consumers than ever before, improving communication and reducing costs. In terms of Africa, we are going to make this technology available to the 388 million people represented by the initial central banks. We know that roughly over half of this population is female. And for the very first time, this technology, in many cases, will be the first instance that the female population can receive support from the state in resolving their most critical financial matters, regardless of language or geographic location. Thank you.
Judges, a question?
I didn't quite get how the ordinary people are going to understand your system. Can you say that again, please?
So the ordinary people would be financial consumers. Take, for example, in rural areas. Right now, if they want to get assistance from the central bank in resolving a financial complaint, they would need to write an email or travel into the city, which is just not possible for some people, for many people, in fact. So what they would do is use their SMS phone, so a feature phone or a messaging app such as Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp, to submit their complaint. The complaint would go to the commercial bank, and the central bank would be monitoring that complaint, pushing a faster reply. So essentially, you have the central bank on your side, pushing a quicker reply, and you don't have to go through any of these old channels. You're just doing it through your phone.
Okay. A round of applause for Mr. Katslis. Our next speech is from Mr. Karve Singh, who is the founder and CEO of Iego Innovation.
Honorable judges, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here today. I want to take you on a little bit of a journey. I came here in 2016 and the government of Rwanda asked me to help on a particular sector, which was transportation. And when we looked around in Africa, we were surprised to find that there are 25 million motorcycle taxis doing an average of about 30 rides. So that's about 750, you can say, rides, 750 million rides a day. And it means, if you actually were to look at the numbers behind it, it's $375 million, but it means about $112.5 billion in cash, which is going through the different economies in Africa, but it's not being accounted for. So when this is not accounted for, the big challenge that we have is, then where is their financial inclusion for these drivers? So when we looked at what was there, we saw that most of the people were focusing on the ride-hailing kind of industry. And we found that this actually attributed to only 10% of the market, because 90% of the ride-hailing is done like this. No need for an app, no need for data, no need for a smartphone. So we said, why don't we try to address 100% of the market? And the way that we were able to do this was by coming out and by providing all the motorcycle taxis with a meter. So what this meter does is that it monetizes every ride, including the ones that are street-hailed. So now we can create a credit score and provide him access to finance. We can also decrement and pull back money from his account in real time. We can also do micro savings. We also provide him digital insurance. Most taxi drivers have only third-party insurance. So in the event of an accident, unfortunately, neither passenger nor driver has any insurance. So by providing digital real-time insurance, only for that ride, we are able to actually save lives. So this is basically where we started. And if you look at it and you could turn around and say, okay, this is interesting, but this is Africa, how does this work? We said, well, we designed the device to work in the dusty, rugged environments. It's actually something that you can drop. But beyond that, we also built a lot of other intelligence into it, that it's got NFC built in, so it acts like a point of sales terminal. So if you think that what we are trying to do right now is just a transport play, the answer is no. We want to create much larger impact, and that much larger impact will come from where? Will come from our ability to be able to make our drivers mobile agent. Why is banking in Africa done through an agent? Poverty is one challenge, but illiteracy is another challenge. Here we are empowering them, giving them a device, training them digitally and financially, and now he becomes an agent who can do many things. Act like a bank agent, but he can also do airtime top-up. He can also pay electricity bills. He has many different avenues. But imagine now that we've got this entire transport layer organized. What can we do with this transport layer? Suddenly, we can now provide first mile, last mile. So the beginning of ushering in m-commerce, again utilizing the same driver to be able to do it, but you can also impact SMEs. How? Mom and pop shops, dry cleaner, who today cannot go beyond their particular area, or a bakery. Suddenly, through our call center, they can call and they can get things even without a smartphone. So that's what the Iego platform is all about.
Thank you very much, Mr. Karamve. I would like to ask the judges to ask a question.
I left you speechless.
Thank you again, Mr. Karamve Singh, on your pitch on Iego Vision. Our next pitch presentation comes from Mr. Herbert Lewis, who is the consultant of Iris Guard.
So this is what you press next?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. I represent Iris Guard UK Limited, and the head office is UK because this is UK-based company, but we have a regional office in Middle East in Jordan, and I cater for the Africa division. So what we do, what Iris does is to provide a platform for the end-to-end financial inclusion services. Now, what we've done, if you see what we've done in quite a number of years, we have the iPay Iris phone, which is what we use to create a digital ID solution, which is used for the financial inclusion. Now, with the digital ID solution, what we do is that will be in the focal point for the registration and authentication whenever you're doing the transaction. So we started, currently we're doing about $500 billion dollars in the transfer, cash assistance in the refugees in Jordan. And we're doing also about $3 million worth of the supermarket exchanges in the shops in our supermarket in those areas. Now, these are the people who in other ways that they wouldn't be accessing financial institutions because they do not have, refugees, as we all know, they don't have ID. So with the iris, which is the part of your eye, this becomes your ID. You do not need a bank account. You do not need any other thing. You only present yourself, and then you are already connected to that. Now, what it does is, I said, you do the enrollment. Now, the enrollment will then register that person in the database, and then you provide, if you're giving the aid to that particular segment, that will then be transferred to the financial service provider, and at the time of redeeming the cash, then you need to verify yourself at the point of the agents. Now, that's the last point, and that's where when you do the verification, like for donor agents, they like to see how the money is being used through the financial institution. So if they are disbursing money in the outlets, you like to do the last mile authentication at the last point, as I showed there. So basically, we're dealing with different institutions, but what we do is to enable organizations to build the database for their organizations or a certain segment like farmers, and at the time of redeeming the services, they will then need to authenticate themselves at those points. So we have few examples, like in the agriculture sector, where you have the commodity exchange in some areas. You need a focal point identification for farmers to get help in the ecosystem. Now, if you have unique ID for the farmers, that gives them opportunity to access to financial institutions. And the financial institutions will be very comfortable to give service to that particular farmer, because at the end of the day, at least they have unique ID to advance services, and at the same time, when they're coming to sell their product, the buyers will be able to pay using that unique ID. So basically, you're giving the financial inclusion to these people who otherwise they wouldn't be having access to financial services. So in brief, we do that, and we're doing that with a very basic handset, which works in a 2G environment, even in much, much remote area. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Halbert. I'd like to invite a question from the panel of judges.
Let me just want to know how is this linked to the national databases, because there has to be a national database, and obviously the national database is rigorized. How do you marry your database with the national database?
Okay, now you're talking about the national database, and this particular innovation of using IRIS is much, much better, because you're talking about the farmers who live in remote area, and they don't have access to really the normal services. You might have the registration, which is done with the fingerprints biometrics, but you're talking of farmers who have this situation there. They're farmers and builders. Usually with fingerprints, the prints tends to fade based on your nature of your job. So IRIS, basically from the age of 3 until you die, it does not change. So this becomes an ideal solution, especially in the areas where we really need to get those people in remote areas included into financial service sector. We're trying to approach different organizations, but this works for national medical insurance services. You are able to use your eye as opposed to use the card. And what you do is just register your IRIS, and then you have access to this particular service. And the IRIS is the most secure item, because you can't borrow someone's eye and take that to redeem services. And we talked yesterday about women who are being paid through mobile network, mobile money. But at last mile authentication, you need something to validate and authenticate that person. That's why we have this simple gadget. You use this and you put at the agent center. This helps to do the authentication on the last mile services. So if it's my phone, if it's wife's phone, and we're saying husbands are getting access to their wife's phones, with IRIS biometric identification, unique ID, unless that person goes at the last mile to authenticate himself, there's no way they can get access to the funds which is sent to that particular individual.
I think that I have the same question, but in another way. All countries have an official database.
Come again?
All countries have official information for the government.
No, so I
no?
don't.
Official database.
Yes.
And you create a new database.
Okay.
In which point you make both of them together to make your information with the other information together to work with financial inclusion and politics and everything else.
Okay. Yeah, the way we work, we help the organization to build the database. Currently, we were working with UN. Our database is, their database is stored in Switzerland, and that has access to all the UN agencies. So we create the database, but it's the owner of the database who then uses that under certain regulations. And in some cases, we had discussion with people in the in the Tanzanian government, the national ID solution, and they agreed and they accepted our solution, which can be linked to the national ID. Now, we're talking about identification of these individuals, but most countries first, they include only 18 years and above for the national ID system. With Iris Card, as I said, from 3 years age, you can include all these people into your database. And this we did because we had child trafficking in Jordan from Syria, from refugees, and we managed to include these young because it's one way of getting inclusion to the children as well. So the integration of this database, we don't own the database will be developed for the government or for UN agencies or for whoever, but how you use that definitely has to be according to the regulations of the country. Wherever we operate, we have very good link with the respective countries in terms of how they tap into the database. And we don't own the data. We're a UK-based company. There's a data privacy. We do not even register anyone without their consent. So that is done under data privacy law.
Thank you very much, Mr. Herbert from Iris Guard. If you could give him a round of applause as he goes back to his seat. Our next speech is from Mr. Riyad Hanslow, the ESG lead of Jumo.
Great. Ladies and gentlemen, before I speak to you today about Jumo, I just want to tell you a story. I want to tell you a story about a woman, Sharon Hameto, who is a goat farmer in Lusaka, Zambia. She donates her goats and sells her goats to an NGO, who in turn provide these to other women, who then use the money that they get from this for cash flow, for the financial needs of their households, for fertilizers for their farms, but also for the financial needs of their children. What we see is Sharon Hameto, one of our customers, who has accessed our Kisaka loans and savings product in Zambia and has been able to make an impact on the entire ecosystem of women that have now been impacted positively as a result. We're able to provide this product with our other partners in the region, MTN and Barclays. If you haven't figured it out yet, ladies and gentlemen, Jumo is an end-to-end, full-stack technology company that partners with MNOs, financial services partners, insurers, and other marketplaces to financially include entrepreneurs in emerging markets, allowing them opportunities and access to financial services such as loans products, savings, and insurance that they would never have had access to before. The problem that we're trying to address is the 1.7 billion people that lack access to traditional financial services. Jumo's aim is to connect these people with positive financial choices that they're able to use in fulfilling their life's mission and their business work. Like I've said before, Jumo is an end-to-end banking technology system that can be used with a powerful data engine that uses machine learning and data algorithms to create accurate credit profiles for our customers, who in turn are able to be provided with financial choices by our funding partners. What this allows for is informed, real-time decision-making for financially excluded people that can be executed as easily as in 90 seconds. Jumo is currently live in 6 markets across Africa and Asia, and to date, we have dispersed over $1 billion to our 14 million customers that we've been able to financially include. With our current integrations, we have the ability to be able to positively impact more than 120 million people. During this process, we've been able to also bring down the cost and the reduction in fees and costings that we are able to provide these loans to customers in. For example, we've been able to drive down the cost of servicing these financially excluded people that traditional banks could not reach by reducing the amount of servicing them from $1 to roughly 2 cents currently, and we see this growing to 1 cent within the next year. But what is the problem? the problem that I've spoken about affects all financially excluded people, but who bears the brunt of this problem in our society are primarily the women. And what we've seen from our experience is that women generally are less reluctant to go to traditional financial services providers because they simply do not trust them. What our platform enables them to do is be able to access a USSD menu in the comfort of their own home and apply for a loan or savings product that they're able to use. We also work positively and proactively with regulators in order to ensure the dialogue and the voice of the customers is adequately heard when forming regulatory policies and ensuring that customer protection is actually at the center. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Riyad. I would like to invite the judges to ask.
How do you sell your product? How do you reach out to my grandmother, if she's still alive, out in the rural areas? I didn't get that part.
So Jumo's platform is premised on the notion that there is a higher feature phone penetration in our markets than there is traditional banking. So we utilize the network that our mobile network operators and other data container partners already have. So this is anyone that has a SIM card that has access to a feature phone is able to utilize the Jumo service. So these are existing mobile money customers within the ecosystem. And that's how come we know that the number of customers that we potentially have access to is roughly 120 million based on our current network coverage and integrated partners.
If there are no other questions from the judges?
One more.
Oh, yes.
How has been the interaction with regulators?
It's been extremely positive, I would say, especially from a lot of the central banks and communications regulators. I think that a lot of the central banks have a financial inclusion strategy that aligns closely with ours, and also recognize the unit economics that traditional banking providers have, and the advantage that Jumo can play in affording these customers the choices that they wouldn't have been able to get anywhere else.
Thank you very much,
There's
Mr.
one more
Riyad.
question.
Oh, sorry, excuse me. Yes, please.
Thank you. In linking to that question, are there any specific innovative components in terms of the regulator dialogue that you have beyond, bringing more the voice of the customer to the regulator, as you mentioned?
Sure. So definitely, I think we have a number of different approaches, and they cover a number of different areas. So just quickly, we have a particular view on licensing and cloud infrastructure that might be useful in developing data privacy and data governance policies in the future and designing for fintech. Also, we think that our approach to financial literacy and financial education of customers throughout the customer journey is particularly important and is something that Jumo does really well. And that is something that we also generally share with a lot of the government and regulators that we work with.
Thank you very much, Mr. Riyad. Our next pitch is from Mr. Simon Scowell, who is the CEO of OCO.
What if I told you that if it doesn't rain by the end of this week, you will lose all your income for the next 6 months? You would feel helpless, right? Well, that is the everyday situation for 2 billion people around the world who live from unirrigated farming. We created OCO to bring a solution to all these farmers. We're talking here about 500 million small and medium businesses who can all spend a few tens of dollars for insurance every year. So it's not only a big social issue, it's also a huge business opportunity. This opportunity exists because traditional insurance was never designed for smallholder farmers. Sending an agent on site to verify the extent of the damages, it's not scalable. And also, how do you serve customers who live far from any city, have no bank accounts, and never received financial education? For insurance companies, that's a nightmare. OCO, on the contrary, is fully automated, digital, affordable, and accessible even if you don't have a bank account. With OCO, any farmer can obtain an insurance policy personalized to their situation from their regular phone. So how does that work? Well, first, farmers contact us via SMS and obtain a personalized quote for insurance based on their location, the field size, and the crop type. Next, these farmers can pay using mobile money and be immediately insured. Finally, we at OCO monitor the weather at the precise location of their field. If we see that they have been suffering from adverse weather conditions using satellite data, we automatically pay them a financial compensation. It's as simple as that. We're positioned as a broker, so we take a commission out of the revenue we generate for the insurance companies. Our current partnerships allow us to enter most African countries, and we started in Mali, where we achieved something quite remarkable. In only a few months, and at a pilot stage, already 450 farmers have registered for insurance. They paid with their phone, and they accessed insurance for the first time in their life. We started paying claims, showing that we make them more resilient to climate risks. But that's not all. Just last week, we signed a partnership with a major microfinance organization, which agrees to give access to microloans more easily to farmers who are insured with us. So we don't only make farmers more resilient to climate risks, we also lift barriers to other financial tools. This is just the beginning, though. We're now going to launch commercially in Mali in the next few months, and then enter new markets, such as Uganda and Ivory Coast. You can trust that we know what we do. I've been working for the past 4 years in microinsurance. I've rolled out affordable life and health insurance products in countries like Fiji and Papua New Guinea. You can ask the regulators here. They will tell you about us. So to sum up, OCO helps farmers become more resilient to climate change. We make it possible for insurance companies to finally serve the rural customers. And we lift barriers to other financial services. So if you want OCO to come to your country, please come and talk to us. Because we know that with the right partners and in the right environment, we can deliver the most impactful insurance product ever created. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simon. Any questions, judges, for Mr. Simon?
Thank you very much. And there are two problems with this microinsurance. And maybe I would like you to tell us exactly how you deal with it. One of them is the premiums that are paid by these small farmers. The second one, and more problematic in this market, is the information asymmetry problems that actually may come up. And how do you deal with those two problems?
So sorry, I can't hear very well. The first problem is premium
the first one is the premiums that are paid by the micro. Remember that you're dealing with farmers with seasonal cycles, and maybe would like to understand how do you price the premiums. And the second one is how do you deal with that, the information asymmetry that is really a big problem in this market.
So information asymmetry, right? Yeah. Okay, so for the premium collection, we use mobile payment. So we actually saw that we need to provide enough time to farmers to pay before the start of the season in order to accumulate sufficient savings or insurance premium to be covered. But we made things very flexible, meaning that if farmers didn't manage to pay the full premium, let's say they paid 50% of their premium, we cover them for half of the amount. So even if farmers were not able to pay the full premium, they are still insured for part of their coverage, of their field value. On information asymmetry, so actually that's a good point, that's a good thing you mentioned this, because we use publicly available weather data. We try to use the data that farmers trust, that they hear on the radio. For example, in Mali, we can use Meteo Mali. So the information that they have is the same information we use. We keep them updated with the rain that fell in their area, for example, and the threshold that needs to be reached for them to receive a payment. So we make sure that they have the same information as we do, so that it's very clear to them when the claim is valid and when it's not valid. and there is no doubt on whether we can tamper the data or if or also no fraud possibility from their side to change this data.
Thank you. In terms of your revenue and business model, you had mentioned that it's a commission from the larger insurance company. What is your approach in terms of scaling further your products and services, and does that business model still hold?
Yes. So also a very good question. Thank you. The challenge with this model, indeed, is that we need to build scale rapidly to generate sufficient revenue every month, every year, to be self-sustainable. So we invest initially in a large distribution system. So we train local agents in large numbers that are all over the country to register farmers based on a commission base in order to reach a sufficient user base to generate monthly income. And then the work we do in one country is easily replicable in another country. So we plan to be already in 5 markets within the next 4 years in order to reach the scale that allows us to be profitable and generate profits. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Simon. Our next innovator is Mr. Niraj Gokadi, who is the CEO of Smart Solutions.
Thank you, AFI, for providing us an opportunity to showcase our solution. If I were a central bank regulator who is in charge of collecting data from the financial institutions and generating a report out of them, I would want all the data to come to one central repository. Also, it's a waste of my time following up with financial institution to send the data on time. And then I have to check the quality of the data, which is a tedious process. After getting those data, then I have to aggregate those data from various different files and generate the report. What if we can automate this process, get the data almost real time, and be able to save 80% of the time? So this time could be used for effective supervision and doing analysis for data-driven policy making. If these are the concerns you have and these are your pain points, then RIMS might be the solution for you. RIMS, Regulatory Information Management System, is a RegTech software that combines reporting, geomapping, and business intelligence tool. This enables commercial banks, DFS providers, microfinances to provide data in a very systematic manner. It ensures submission of quality data with automated features like reminders, escalations, and resubmission options. The geomapping of the data really helps central banks to see where the areas are which requires more financial access points to increase their financial inclusion. The system is very cost effective and scalable and adaptive. Since the digital DFS system is evolving very rapidly, the system should be able to handle those adaptations. This system was implemented in Central Bank of Nepal in 2016, and we are in the process of implementing it in Central Bank of Zambia. So along with the monitoring of the regular banking activities, the system is great for tracking and monitoring DFS ecosystem. So we track activities of e-money providers, branchless banking, remittance, and so forth. So this system is not just to make convenience to central bank, but this system also wants to give back to the financial institutions which are providing the data. So we create personalized dashboards for them where they can see where they are in the market, and they can use the thing for strategy and making, they can see where the growth potential areas are. Also in developing countries, some of the financial institutions don't have IT experts in the team, so they can upload the data via forms or Excel returns as well. The financial inclusion is in the heart of the system. Whenever we design, we make sure that disaggregated data on age, gender, geographic locations are all covered. We have used AFI guidelines to make these financial inclusion dashboard. This is RIMS in 4 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Niraj. I'd like to invite the judges to ask a question.
How many customers do you have? How many financial institutions have asked for your support?
In Nepal, there are 28 commercial banks who are using it, and there are around 12 microfinances, and we have B-class and C-class banks, which are lower than financial, so there are around 35 of them. So approximately around 70 to 80 financial institutions are using it, including DFS providers.
But the data is stored by the regulator, not yourselves.
Sorry?
The data is stored by the regulators, not yourself. You're not the...
Oh, no. So we host it in the central bank, okay, and then the data resides, everything on the central bank.
If there's no other question?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Niraj. Our next innovator is Mr. Emmanuel Ruiz Velasquez, who is the COO of Justo.
So, hello everybody. My name is Emmanuel Ruiz. I'm the CEO of Gestel, a Mexican RegTech company. So, what's our purpose as a RegTech company? Well, make compliance and regulatory related activities more efficient and less costly using artificial intelligence. How do we do this and how do we achieve this? Well, by doing two main things: robotic process automation and machine learning solutions for financial institutions and for regulators or supervisors as well. RegTech for financial institutions, SupTech for supervisors. So what's our competitive advantage with our product? Well, we adapt to your business rules. We do the things you daily operate in the same way your people do it. Now, we solve 4 important problems. First of all, information silos between financial authorities. That means with API we can interconnect all of the data systems, all of the software, Excel, spreadsheets, etc., between financial authorities. Second, lack of data management techniques in the ensemble of regulatory information, which means our principal software is based on the principles of Basel 239. Third, high regulatory cost for financial institutions and or supervisors. We are a CapEx model. And third, OpEx model. So third, it's human error mistakes. We mitigate them. Our SupTech platform works in the following way. It will empower government agencies to use technology into transforming the regulation into a machine executable tool that will improve the quality and security of financial services. How do we do it? Well, here's a slide. There's in financial institution on the left, all of their databases, all of their information, text file, PDF, GPG, etc. We extract with an AP manager. The AP manager will process the software in the processing infrastructure, then it will store it in a golden copy, and in that golden copy we can give you to the supervisor reports exploitation, dashboard, and the cherry on the top, advanced analytics. Your analytics will be reconciled with your own business rules. Therefore, you will be consuming information, advanced analytic information with reliable information. So our experience and our results are In Mexico, we partner with R2A BFA initiative, so we deploy our model of Subtech AML CFT with the Mexican authority. We help them tackle their AML CFT issues with machine learning and robotic process automation. Because of this, CMBB has been recognized by the Bank for International Settlement as one of the Subtech regulators that use groundbreaking technology. So some key points are basically stop wasting time reconciling, stop wasting time doing boring things. Let's explode the information. Instead of having 1 year or 6 months in seeing the reports, now you will have it in seconds and in beautiful dashboards. So how does Subtech platforms help financial inclusion in developing countries? Well, first of all, data is pulled directly from the financial institutions, so less regulatory cost for the financial institutions. Second, joint ecosystem efforts for supervision. Let's put all the regulators ready to rumble. Let's put it interconnected and share information. Third, reduce the impact and cost of the de-risking policies with KYC efficiency and a more stable and less risky financial ecosystem. I will take the questions from the judges. Thank you.
Thank you. Is your primary clients regulatory authorities of different forms, or is there a plan to diversify your client base? What is your sort of strategy moving forward on that?
Okay, Your Honor, thank you for your question. Well, my clients are any kind of enterprise, let's say a government or a financial institution that needs to comply with regulatory hassle. So I will put you an example. We have this business case with a big logistic transportation company. Their issue was that their VAT tax reconciliation process have to be robotized. They have to employ 8 people to do 1 week each one of the 8 people to reconcile and do the calculations. Obviously, they have a lot of problems, a lot of errors, a lot of differences between their numbers and the numbers that they were reporting to the Mexican IRS. With our technology, we robotize their process, and we sit with the business user and tell them, imagine that you are hiring a new guy. You will teach it how to do the same thing you always been doing, the same calculations, but that guy will be a robot. So no more vacations, 24/7 days of work and error-free results. So yes.
How do you see this system being rolled out in our African countries?
Well, that's an excellent question, Your Honor. And let me tell you, I am the expert in technology. You are the expert in regulation. I am here to show you that technology democratizes countries. So how do I see in Africa this thing? Well, you tell me, what do you need? I am at your service in order to work my technology for you. Thank you.
Do we have any more questions from the judges? If there are no more questions, we'd like to thank you, Mr. Emmanuel. Thank you for your colorful presentation. Our last innovator is Mr. Gerard Baxma, who is the Group CEO of People's Pension Trust.
I apologize in advance. That's a really tough act to follow. I want to start with a quote. It goes like this. One day, when I am old and can no longer work, I will not be a burden to my kids or my family. I will not have to beg before I can eat because I'm saving towards my retirement today. Now, this is an actual quote from an actual member of People's Pension Trust Ghana. Now, this is Evelyn Dash. She's a caterer in Accra, and she's one of our 40,000 members. People's Pension Trust entered the market at the end of 2016, December 2016, we were licensed by the MPRA. At that time, there were 32 pension funds in the market. They were all licensed to target the informal sector, to work with informal sector workers, get them on board, get them saving towards their retirement. But less than 1% of the 10 million in the informal sector actually had a pension account, and none of them had really been saving in the last few years. So what we did, we set up a model that was initially deemed not scalable. We set up a model that was high touch, later became high tech. I like to say that we were not a fintech company, we were not a pension company, we were a people company. We made sure that we understood what the needs are, what the behaviors are, the savings patterns. We started to find out that when somebody saves 5 CDs the first time instead of 3.2, we can more accurately predict their savings behavior because it's intentional, not incidental. So by working through sales agents, by working through our pension managers, by working with savings groups, cooperatives, SMEs, we're able to truly understand what drives the saving, what are the challenges. We actually adapted our product so that our members can withdraw 50% of their contribution at any time. Now that may seem like a lot, and we thought people would withdraw 50%. They don't. They withdraw about 10 to 15%, and that can usually be for a financial shock or if money is needed around Christmas or the holidays, for example. Our 40,000 members to date have saved about $1 million US combined. These are all informal sector workers. And I'd like to add that our CEO in Ghana, Samuel Waterberg, who's not here today, he's with his team. We have 50 staff members in Ghana. He's also now an advisor to the regulator in Ghana on informal sector pensions to make sure that the whole system becomes more inclusive. In 2019, together with my colleague Ivan there, we set up People's Pension EA here in Rwanda, so we live just around the corner. And we're setting up a similar pension scheme here in Rwanda, and we expect to expand across the East African market. I've kept it within 4 minutes so that you can all go and have your drinks. I know it's the end of the day, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gerard. Question from the panel of judges?
Now, I think you talked about pension for informal markets. So how do you base their contributions to their pension? Because essentially, one of them is that they don't have a true or maybe a real, should I say, income flows. Maybe the income flows are stochastic. So how do you actually determine the pension?
I mean, that's correct. That's one of the main challenges for the incumbent pension funds is that it's a very tough market to reach. There's a lot of education back and forth, and there's no real predictable income. So there's no source where you can take the contribution from. So it's a defined contribution system. So what you can put in is what we invest, and when you turn 60, we pay it out over a 20-year period. I understand there's challenges. If you turn 81, 82, 83, there are some issues there where we need to insure, kind of have a life insurance. But to add to that is, when we came in, we thought we need to make it as flexible as possible. You can save what you want, when you want, whatever works. Our experience and some of our behavioral science work with CGAP has taught us that that isn't really what works. Saying you can do anything, anytime, whenever you want means that people don't really do what's best for them. So we sit with them, we sit with our members. Well, I don't personally, but our team in Ghana does, and we help them with a savings plan. How much do you need to save to reach the goals you want to reach? Do you want to have a full pension? Most can't actually save for a full pension, so they save for additional income. Perhaps to hire someone for the farm when they retire, perhaps someone just to help them out. And then we help them stick to that savings goal. So through our sales agents, through our work with the savings groups, through our work with SMEs, cooperatives, we try to help them stick to the savings goals. That's definitely not always possible, but that's how we try to help them save without being able to take its source from a recurring income.
Thank you. What is the type of discussions you might be having with regulatory authorities, and could that influence the quality of the global regulatory dialogue moving forward in this area?
Right. So the conversations we have been having in Ghana is how to, I don't want to say loosen the policies, but how to make it more attractive to enter the market. So for example, one of the things is you can take as a pension fund, you can take, or trustee, you can take 2.5% of assets under management. That's a challenge because about 1% goes to your partner, so you're left with 1.5%. So before you really have the assets under management to become a break-even company, you've gone bankrupt, 4 or 5 times over, and that's a big challenge. So that could be one of the conversations we're having. It's definitely different in different markets. You can charge different prices. You can take more of a fee from the interest. But that would be one of the conversations we're having. Soon, we'll be partnering with an organization that I cannot name at this moment to work with more regulators in more countries to tell them our experience and the work we've been doing in both Rwanda and Ghana, and to share our experience. Hope that answers your question. Time for drinks.
If there are no more questions.
In most pension regulators, they determine how you should invest the pension funds. Do you feel that that is a constraint to you in terms of the way you're operating the business right now?
Not yet.
Not yet.
We have less than $1 million in savings, so even if we wanted to diversify, it would be a challenge. Yeah. I understand. Yeah. No, it's not a constraint so far, not in the markets we work.
With that said and done, thank you, Mr. Gerard. If we could also give a round of applause to all our 10 innovators. I would like us to appreciate our judges with a round of applause and invite them to take their seats. I'd like to remind you that you can always vote for your best innovator using the GPF app. Once you go to the GPF app, you can always go to FinTech Voting. Voting is open from now until tomorrow, the closing ceremony of this event. I would like to invite the judges to go back to their seats. As they go back to their seats, could we give them another round of applause, please? Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of day one of the Global Policy Forum. This evening, we're going to be hosted by the National Bank of Rwanda in a gala dinner, which will take place at the Kigali Conference and Exhibition Village. May I remind you that every 10 minutes there is a shuttle service starting from 6:30. So those of you who are ready to go, there will be a shuttle service waiting for you downstairs every 10 minutes from 6:30. And the VIPs have their vehicles planned to pick and drop them to the gala dinner. With that said, I would like to thank you all for this wonderful day. See you tomorrow morning. Thank you.